This evening, arguably the holiest evening of the year. Although I will be talking, what I want to talk about is the importance of good listening. What does it mean to listen well? And how can we give each other the gift of good listening, which is more rare than we might imagine? And I want to begin by sharing a story from my own life about a moment where not the best listening took place. So my grandfather, Alav Hashalom, lived to be 92 years old. And toward the end of his life, we all went to visit him in the hospital, and he was struggling, and he was in pain, and it's clear that he was agitated. And someone asked him, "How are you doing?" And he said, in a loud and groaning way, "I'm dying." And someone, I don't remember who, said, "Oh, you're crying? We're sorry. You'll be okay." And we looked at each other, and no one really spoke after that. And we wished him well, and we left the room. Now, why did this person say that? One imagines that for this person, that moment was very difficult. This person knew very well what they heard. They knew exactly what my grandfather had said. But it was difficult for that person in that moment to face the reality, and so they deliberately misheard. What did my grandfather need in that moment? Did he need to be misheard? I don't think so. Possibly he needed someone to just hear him, to just say, "We hear you," and to allow him to express what he needed to express in that particular moment. I want you to take a minute and think about the teenager who wants a parent to listen to what he's saying, to actually take it in, even if it's painful, perhaps to express some sympathy, but perhaps just to take it in. And instead, the teenager finds that his words are being ignored or misheard or undervalued, or perhaps he's being made to feel in some way less than for expressing what he wants to express. Take a moment to think about the adult who wants a spouse to listen to what she's actually saying, even if it might be painful, and not find ways to deflect or distort or argue with or defend against what's being said. And I bet if I asked you, because we tend to remember these things, you could think of a time in your life where you wished that another person, a friend, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a partner, had done a better job of listening to you. But instead of being listened to, what you got instead was defensiveness, or a changing of the subject, or something that was said or done that made you feel that perhaps you should not have said what you said at all. Good listening, it's a gift that we all want. We all want to be heard. We all want other people to listen to us well. And so what I want to do tonight is to mine our tradition for instruction as to how we can give each other the gift of good listening. Now, of course, the quintessential verse from the Torah, which we recite every single day, including on our final day and our final moments, is Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel, Adonai is God, Adonai is one. And I want to focus on the very first word, the word Shema, which means listen. And I shared this briefly in an article that I wrote for the Temple Israel Bulletin, but I want to expand on it. And it really provides a very profound port of entry into what it means to listen well. So the word Shema has 3 letters, Shin, Mem, Ayin, and they each make a different sound. The first letter, shin, makes the sound shh, which means be quiet. The first part of good listening is being quiet, and it sounds obvious, but how often are we quiet enough to be able to listen well? Instead of being quiet, we rush to convince, to respond in some way, perhaps to push back, perhaps to express sympathy, but before we really understand what we're hearing, perhaps to voice our disagreements. And even if we are not saying anything out loud, oftentimes inside, we're thinking of our rebuttal, we're thinking of what we're going to say next. And so there's value, I believe, in quieting not just our outer voice, but our inner voice enough so that we can truly listen well to what's being said. And here's something I want you to consider, which may help you to quiet your outer and inner voice when someone, especially someone you love, is listening to you. Try to imagine how hard it was for that person to come to you in that moment and to share what they want to share. Try to imagine the emotional hurdles that they needed to leap over just to steel up the confidence to be able to confront and share in that moment. So try, if somebody has the courage to open up to you, to just quiet those voices. So that's the shin, which is shh. And the second letter, of course, of the word Shema, mem, makes the sounds So I'm going to suggest is the sounds of taking it in. You're taking it in. What am I actually hearing? Processing the body language. Does this person look awkward or uncomfortable? Do they look relieved that they're expressing something that they've wanted to express for a long time? Taking it in means trying to determine the tone. Does the person sound anxious? Is there nervous laughter? Is there anxiety, nervousness, relief? Who knows? But take it all in and get the vibe. And if you're too worried about what are the neighbors going to think about what this person is saying? Or am I being asked to defend something? Did I do something wrong? Or is there some way in which this is going to threaten me as a person? If you can't get past all of that, it'll be hard to get to the place of, taking it in. And the final letter of the word Shema is ayin. And the way that it's vocalized in the word Shema, it makes the sound ah. Ah is the sound of, I think I understand something. I think that I am beginning to see things a little bit differently based on what I've just heard. I didn't consider that before. I didn't notice that before. Now, I'm going to ask us to sort of walk through a practice round, okay? So a child or a partner or a friend, sibling, and I realize each relationship is different, wants to talk to you about a decision they're considering or a challenge that they're facing or something that they want to share that has been sitting on their hearts perhaps for a long time. First, you set up a time to talk. And I suggest, if possible, that you do it in person. And if you can do it over food, sometimes that can make it even better. And after exchanging pleasantries, the other person starts to talk. And then take note of what's going on in your head and your heart as you're listening. How am I taking this in? What am I actually hearing? What am I actually noticing? And there's no one way to do it. You don't have to be rigid. Use your common sense. Maybe it'll be helpful for you to ask a question of clarification, or maybe it'll be helpful for you to express simply that you're hearing what is being said. You don't have to be quiet the entire time. Use your seichel. Use your common sense as to how to proceed. And perhaps you'll have a moment of at the end where you realize something that you hadn't considered before. I want to share something on a personal note, and then I'll make an observation about the larger ways in which our failure to listen well is impacting us as a society. So first on the personal notes, so I have 3 sons. They are now all in their 30s. And, raising 3 boys required a kind of extended Shema Yisrael as they were growing up. But I found that just being present for those moments when they wanted to share, and sometimes they shared verbally, and sometimes it was sort of more of us doing things together. I'm not always great at being quiet. That took time. It took time for me to actually quiet myself enough. I carry many expectations into the conversation. I try to be honest about what those expectations are, especially when they might diverge with what one of my children was thinking and actually expressing. And just being able to do the shh and being able to consider and allowing myself to have moments to understand what was happening with these 3 individuals who were self-individuating across their youth and into their young adulthood and becoming, I would say, 3 pretty remarkable human beings. That required effort. That did not happen immediately. And I encourage us to just do what we can, to be able to give that gift of good listening, especially to people whom we deeply love. So a word about what's going on societally, and then I'll conclude. One of the downsides to social media is that it doesn't provide an avenue for great listening, not even good listening. And when you read discussions that are taking place and people who are commenting on other people's posts, often what you see are people who are playing to a crowd, an online crowd. There is very little real listening that takes place, and therefore the communication often has an edge to it, as though people are in competition with each other, rather than really trying to have a conversation with each other. We are seeing increased polarization that is leading to violence. We see it again and again. And what we have is an extended crisis of bad listening that has real negative repercussions for our society. So I want to look back, way back, and then move us closer to the present at individuals who learn to listen to each other, despite often seeing things differently. The great sage Hillel almost never agreed with the great sage Shammai, but he listened to what he had to say before he spoke. And apparently they ate in each other's homes. Apparently their children married each other's children. A remarkable example of what good listening can yield. I recently saw a video of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg describing how the late Justice Antonin Scalia, the 2 of them very different ideologically, would give her his briefs to read because he wanted her feedback. And I'm trying to imagine that taking place today across ideological lines that now we would call ideological divides. Listen to what I have to say, Ruth, and I trust you, because even though we see many things differently, you are incredibly smart and qualified. I want you to listen to what I said and reflect back to me. How often do we avoid people who see the world differently? We segregate ourselves in all sorts of places so that we don't have to listen to someone who may see things, even important things, differently. I think we all deserve to be listened to well when we're expressing our views on current matters, when we are feeling lonely, when we're making difficult decisions, when we are sharing aspects of our own lives, our own identities, when we're confronting illness, when we are confronting our own mortality. We don't deserve to be misheard like my grandfather was misheard. We deserve for others to give us the gift of good listening, and we should give it to one another as well. So I'm going to conclude with a story, and I admit I found it online and I cannot verify that this person actually exists. But as Elie Wiesel once said, there are some things that may or may not have actually happened that are very true. So I think that this story is true, whether or not we can prove that it happened. So there was a man in his mid-70s, and his wife had passed away a few years before. And he spoke about how he felt very much alone, and he would sit in the park day after day, and he would sit on a particular park bench, which was his park bench. And he would notice around him a whole bunch of children and teenagers just sitting on their phones and just looking and texting and watching and scrolling. And he had an idea. He decided to take a few sheets of paper and to tape it on a variety of different benches. And it contains a QR code. And it said, if you want to, you can scan the QR code and write a little bit about yourself. And it'll go to a Google Doc that I'll be collecting. Apparently, he said he got advice from his grandson about how to set up the whole thing. So at the end of the message, he wrote, "Tell me your story. I'm listening." A few days went by, nothing happened. And then one teen wrote, "My dad is sick. My mom works nights, and I'm scared." And the man wrote a card, and he left it on the bench. And some young person found it and read the card, presumably the teen that had written that message. And more children and teens started to write their stories. And they were really glad to know that there was someone who wanted to listen. Tell me your story. I'm listening. What a gift. A central prayer that we're going to be reciting in a few moments begins Shema Kolenu. We say to God, listen to our voices. Listen to us. Don't cast us out as we start to get older. Don't cast us out as our strength diminishes. Listen to us. Have compassion on us. And so I ask us, all of us who want others to listen well to us, can we please give each other the gift of good listening? Shh. Ah. Amen.